Hello 8th graders, I'm Milena Ranisavļев and I'll be your teacher in today's class. Today's lesson is about indirect or reported speech. At the end of this class, you will be able to make indirect statements and indirect questions with the verb in present simple tense. Before we start talking about indirect speech, I want to remind you about the difference between direct and indirect speech. Direct speech is a process of repetition of actual words said by one person. It is always marked with quotation marks. On the other hand, indirect speech is a process of repetition of words said by another person in our own words. It isn't marked with quotation marks. Dakle, direktnim govorom zovemo doslovno navođenje nečijih reči, a te reči su uvek obeležene navodnicima. S druge strane, indirektnim govorom zovemo ponavljanje nečijih reči, ali svojim rečima, a kada neke izjave ili pitanja ponavljamo svojim rečima, onda u tim izjavama i pitanjima mora doći do nekih promjena. Take a look at the examples. We are staying at a small hotel. They say that they are staying at a small hotel. I'm very busy. He says that he's very busy. Is he at home? She asks if he is at home. In indirect speech, pronouns and possessive adjectives always change because the speaker changes. U indirektnom govoru menjaju se zamjenice i prisvojni pridevi zato što se menjaju i lica u indirektnom govoru. The changes look like this. I or we become he, she, or they. My or our become his, her, or their. Myself becomes himself or herself. This book or these books become the books or the book. Look at the examples. I don't sell products of poor quality in my shop. Paul says that he doesn't sell products of poor quality in his shop. Dakle, u prvom primjeru vidimo promjenu koja se desila u indirektnom govoru. Zamjenica I je postala he, prisvojni pridev my je postao his. Pošto je zamjenica I postala he, onda mora doći i do promjene glagola. Pa tako je don't sell products postalo doesn't sell products. We agree with you. Bill says they agree with us. I saw myself on TV. Molly says she saw herself on TV. U prvom primjeru, na ovom slajdu, imamo slučaj da je we postalo they i you postalo us. Zatim, u sljedećem primjeru, I je postalo she, myself je postalo herself. The tense and time expressions also need to change in reported speech. However, that is the case when we start reporting statements with the verb in past tense. So when we start with, for example, he said or he told. Vreme i prilozi za vreme se također moraju promijeniti u indirektnom govoru, međutim to je pravilo i slučaj za indirektne izjave koje počinju glagolom u prošlom vremenu. Odnosno ako počinju sa, na primjer, he said ili he told. Ali nećemo se baviti ovom temom na današnjem času zato što ćete to obraditi na nekom narednom času. Reporting statements that start with a verb in present simple tense. As I said before, we don't need to change tense in indirect statements that start with a verb in present simple tense. Some verbs that are used to start indirect speech are say, complain, explain, or admit. Or if they are used in third person singular, they sound like says, complains, explains, or admits. Kao što sam malo pre rekla, nema potrebe za promjenom vremena u izjavama koje počinju glagolom u sadašnjem vremenu. Odnosno ako počinju glagolom kao što su say, complain, explain ili admit. We usually start with the verb in present when we are reporting a conversation that is still going on. For example, in a telephone conversation. Obično počinjemo glagolom u sadašnjem vremenu kada ponavljamo rečenice iz razgovora koji je u toku. Na primjer, kada dve osobe obavljaju telefonski razgovor. U sljedećem primjeru, Paul i Anne obavljaju razgovor. I'm trying to get a taxi. Paul says that he is trying to get a taxi. Kao što vidite, vrijeme se nije promijenilo. I'm trying, he is trying, ali je došlo do promjene zamjenica. Kada još počinjemo glagolom u sadašnjosti? Kada čitamo e-mail i kada želimo da ponovimo šta je napisano u mailu. For example, your homework is excellent. The teacher says that my homework is excellent. Number 3. Reporting a statement that someone makes very often. Možemo započeti indirektne izjave glagolom u sadašnjosti ako želimo da ponovimo rečenice koje neko često izjavljuje. For example, I'll never pass this exam. Ben says that he'll never pass the exam. Number 4. Reporting a statement about natural laws. Glagolom u sadašnjem vremenu započinjemo indirektni govor ako želimo da ponovimo nečiju izjavu, odnosno nečiju rečenicu koja se tiče prirodnog zakona ili neke opšte poznate istine. The earth moves around the sun. They say that the earth moves around the sun. How do we introduce indirect statements? We use that. Indirektne izjave uglavnom započinjemo glagolom say ili admit, kao što smo malo pre rekli, a nakon tih glagola uvodimo that. Take a look at the example. My father doesn't watch the news and he doesn't read newspapers. Mark says that his father doesn't watch the news and he doesn't read newspapers. I live in London. She says that she lives in London. Another important thing to remember is that we never use object pronouns after verbs in present simple. So we have to say, scientists say that climate is changing. But we cannot say, scientists say us that climate is changing. Or, our teacher says that everyone has to do the test. But we cannot say, our teacher says us that everyone has to do the test. Dakle, ne možemo koristiti objektsku zamjenicu nakon glagola say ili admit ili nekog sličnog glagola u sadašnjem vremenu. Indirect questions. We use indirect questions to report a question that someone has asked. Kada želimo da ponovimo nečija pitanja svojim rečima, koristit ćemo indirektna pitanja. Today, we are dealing with indirect questions that start with a verb in present simple. Danas se bavimo indirektnim pitanjima koja počinju glagolom u sadašnjem vremenu i takva indirektna pitanja uglavnom počinju glagolima kao što su ask, want to know, wonder ili drugim sličnim glagolima. A very important rule to mention here is that when we turn direct questions into indirect questions, we use the statement word order, not the question word order. Ono što je važno napomenuti kod indirektnih pitanja je da indirektna pitanja nemaju redosled reči kao u upitnim rečenicama, odnosno kao u direktnim pitanjima, već moraju da imaju redosled reči kao u izjavnim ili potvrdnim rečenicama. Now look at the explanation in two different types of questions. The first group of questions is yes-no questions. Prva grupa pitanja su yes-no pitanja. To su pitanja koje zahtevaju potvrdan ili odričan odgovor. They are introduced by if or whether. Indirektna pitanja su predstavljena, odnosno započeta, rečima if ili whether. Look at the table. Redosled reči u direktnim pitanjima je sljedeći. pomoćni glagol, subjekat, plus glavni glagol. Indirektna pitanja prate sledeći redosled reči. Nakon glagola u sadašnjem vremenu imamo if ili whether, pa subjekat, pa glavni glagol. Examples are: Does Rosie live in Dublin? He asks if Rosie lives in Dublin. Did you speak English? He asks if I spoke English. Možete da primetite da u indirektnim pitanjima nema pomoćnog glagola. If Rosie lives, if I spoke. U drugom slučaju imamo sledeći redosled reči. Pomoćni glagol, subjekat, plus glavni glagol. A u indirektnim pitanjima imamo glagol u sadašnjem vremenu, if ili whether, plus subjekat, plus pomoćni glagol, plus glavni glagol. Možete da primetite da je došlo do inverzije, odnosno zamene mesta, subjekta i pomoćnog glagola. Dakle, u direktnim pitanjima imamo na prvom mestu pomoćni glagol, pa subjekat, dok u indirektnim pitanjima imamo prvo subjekat, pa pomoćni glagol. To izgleda ovako. Is Sam going out with Julia? She wants to know if Sam is going out with Julia. Were they sleeping? She wants to know if they were sleeping. Have you bought the coat? She wants to know if I have bought the coat. Dakle, u direktnom pitanju je bilo is Sam, a u indirektnom Sam is. Pa smo imali were they u direktnom pitanju, a u indirektnom pitanju they were. I have you u direktnom pitanju, a u indirektnom I have. Another group of questions is WH questions. Sledeća grupa pitanja su pitanja koja počinju upitnim rečima, a upitne reči su what, where, when, why i kod njih važi sledeći redosled reči u direktnim pitanjima. Upitna reč plus pomoćni glagol plus subjekat plus glavni glagol. U indirektnim pitanjima redosled reči je sledeći. Posle glagola u sadašnjem vremenu imamo upitnu reč, pa subjekat, pa glavni glagol. Examples are: What do you want to drink? They ask what I want to drink. Why did she get up late? They ask why she got up late. I u ovim pitanjima, koja počinju upitnim rečima, možete da primetite da se u indirektnim pitanjima gubi pomoćni glagol. Dakle, u direktnim pitanjima je bilo what do you want to drink, a u indirektnim pitanjima what I want to drink. Pa why did she get up late, a u indirektnim pitanjima why she got up late. Sledeći primjeri imaju sledeći redosled reči. Upitna reč, pa glagol, pa subjekat. A u indirektnim pitanjima redosled je upitna reč, pa subjekat, pa glagol. U ovim pitanjima možete da primetite inverziju, odnosno zamenu mesta, glagola i subjekta. Dakle, u direktnim pitanjima je na prvom mestu glagol, pa subjekat, a u indirektnim pitanjima se prvo piše subjekat, pa glagol. Where are the car keys? He asks where the car keys are. When was her birthday? He asks when her birthday was. What have you seen? He asks what I have seen. Dakle, u direktnim pitanjima imamo are the car keys, a u indirektnim the car keys are. Pa, was her birthday, a u indirektnim her birthday was. I have you, pa I have. Indirect questions are also used to sound more polite. Indirektna pitanja se takođe koriste kada želimo da zvučimo ljubazno. Takva pitanja počinju izrazima kao što su I would like to know i can you tell me or could you tell me. Look at the examples. Could you tell me if there is a bank near here, please? I'd like to know if there is a bank near here. Could you tell me what the time is, please? I'd like to know what the time is. Now, when you've learned the rules about indirect statements and indirect questions, we can revise. We'll revise them through some questions. Read each question and try to answer them. When do we use indirect speech? We use it when we repeat in our own words what somebody has said or asked. Kada koristimo indirektni govor, koristimo ga kada želimo da ponovimo svojim rečima nešto što je neko izgovorio ili upitao. What happens when we start reporting with the verb in present tense? Pronouns and possessive adjectives change, but the tense doesn't change. Šta se dešava kada počnemo indirektni govor glagolom u sadašnjem vremenu? Dešava se promjena zamenica i prisvojnih prideva, ali vrijeme se ne menja. What verbs in present tense can we use to report? We use say, admit, explain, complain. Koje glagole u sadašnjem vremenu koristimo u indirektnom govoru? Koristimo say, admit, explain, complain. What word do we use after verbs in present tense? We use that. Now look at the example that describes previous four rules. Pogledajte sada primjer koji opisuje prethodna 4 pravila. I don't like sharing a bedroom with my brother. Alice says that she doesn't like sharing a bedroom with her brother. Imali smo promjenu zamjenice I u she i my u her i imali smo reč that posle glagola u sadašnjem vremenu. Let's move on. Can we use object pronouns after verbs in present simple tense? No, we can't. She says me that she'll meet me in town isn't correct. Dakle, ne možemo koristiti objekatske zamjenice posle glagola u sadašnjem vremenu, odnosno posle glagola say. What verbs in present simple tense do we use to report questions? We use ask, want to know, wonder. Koje glagole u sadašnjem vremenu koristimo u indirektnim pitanjima? Koristimo ask, wants to know ili wonder. What word order or sentence form do we use in indirect questions? We use the statement word order or the affirmative form of a sentence. Koji redosled reči, odnosno rečenični oblik, koristimo u indirektnim pitanjima? Uvek koristimo redosled reči kao u izjavnim, odnosno potvrdnim rečenicama. How do we introduce a reported yes-no question? With if or whether. Now look at the example that describes the previous rules. Have you finished your homework? My mom wants to know if I have finished my homework. Dakle, u indirektnom pitanju se vidi da je iskorišćen redosled reči kao u potvrdnim rečenicama. U direktnom pitanju smo imali have you, a u indirektnom I have. I započeli smo indirektno pitanje sa if. How do we introduce reported WH questions? With the WH word. Where do you live, Tina? Pete wants to know where Tina lives. U ovom slučaju imamo upitnu reč where. U direktnom govoru imamo pomoćni glagol, a u indirektnom govoru, odnosno pitanju, nemamo pomoćni glagol. In what other situations do we use indirect questions? When we want to be polite. U kojim još to situacijama koristimo indirektna pitanja? Indirektna pitanja možemo koristiti i kada želimo da budemo ljubazni. Okay, now we could do some activities to practice indirect speech. Activity 1. Complete the indirect statements with the correct pronouns and possessive adjectives. Popuni indirektne izjave tačnom zamenicom ili prisvojnim pridevom. I really like our new teacher. Emma says that she really likes their new teacher. My grandparents always give me some money for my birthday. Jack says that his grandparents always give him some money for his birthday. We usually have our dinner at 6:30. Carla says that they usually have their dinner at 6:30. Our maths teacher always gives us a lot of homework. Mark says that their maths teacher always gives them a lot of homework. I fell off my bike and hurt myself. Gina says that she fell off her bike and hurt herself. Activity 2. What do the people want to know? Complete the indirect questions. Dopuni indirektna pitanja. Where are you going, Tom? Jessica wants to know where Tom is going. Does Roger work in a supermarket? Carol wants to know if Roger works in a supermarket. Did United win the match? Bill wants to know if United won the match. When will you go on holiday, Larry? Susie wants to know when Larry will go on holiday. Have you seen my phone, Charlie? Charlie's mom wants to know if Charlie has seen her phone. Today's lesson came to an end. I hope it was useful and easy to understand. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye.